Is this better?
That is that is better. I feel like there's less white noise.
Yeah. Okay. So I had a fun day.
Tell me
I
about it.
ripped. I had a new desk delivered, so I ripped my office apart, moved my current desk, built the new desk, and put everything together the way I'm planning to use it. But that meant that everything got moved around and changed.
Yeah.
And so, knobs just got bumped, and I think I now have it roughly, like in my ear, it doesn't sound funny anymore either, where it was bothering me quite a bit the way it was. So I think I'm in a good spot. We'll find out when I edit. um, but yeah, I have a new desk. I have we sold. So I had an inexpensive L-shaped desk that I bought at the old house that had a centerpiece that you could lift to be, manually to be a standing desk.
That's the one that I saw, right?
Right. So
Okay.
I had moved it to kind of the back behind me and had upgraded to a motorized, just flat workspace standing desk that was my primary desk, which worked great for what I needed it to do at the time. But it has never really suited itself well to like the creative production stuff. Um,
Right.
so I moved that desk behind me and ordered one that's a producer's desk. So it has two like rack areas in the lower section where the legs are, and a small little mini rack in front of me. So I have like rack mount shelves for the audio interface and all. So stuff is just, it's nice and clean finally. And I feel so much better about it. But a byproduct of that is I finally have enough room to put my reference monitors attached to the audio interface up on the sides so I can actually properly edit uh, sound reproduction being the way I need it to be to know that I've got it right. Just, a complete change in how it was set up.
Send if you don't mind, send a link. I'd like to see.
I can send you a couple of pictures too. I took a couple after I put together part of it. So the standing desk that I was using is now I have to do stuff like I got the main workspace set up because I was on the clock to make sure it was ready for this evening. So
Yeah.
the desk behind me is just stacked with some stuff that I need to put away. But I also had that two-tier kind of shaped bookcase that was downstairs. So I had three pieces of furniture down here for the desk area. I was able to completely remove that bookcase, so it's just the two desks now, and it feels much better.
I like that. I have the same. I use the same background. Oh, I like that a lot. Say the same background that's on your external monitor.
Nice. And then what I like about the two rack bottoms is I have a rack mount surge protector on one side so that I have my cabling nicer than I had it with the battery backup below it. And then I just used rack shelves to add shelves for now because I don't really have a
Nice.
lot of rack gear, but I needed flexible space. And so the being able to just put shelves wherever I need them, it made it so much nicer to put together. And so now, like the issue I had with all the external hard drives and the multiple Thunderbolt docks, I mean, it still didn't clean if you're looking at it, but it's not just piled up in the corner like it was. And so I feel much better that way.
So or not. Well, comment is I see the Quicksilver, and that's a really cool. I like that. It's really cool. Do you have it connected to anything, or is it just?
It's just down there for now.
And then okay,
That's the one I need to order a video card and see if it's just the video card that's a issue or
gotcha.
if there's something more.
I was about to ask what that was on the far right corner, but I see it's a blue light. I like that.
Yeah,
Uh, uh
it's just a hue lamp, so it's whatever color.
okay. You just had it set to blue. Above your second display, what is the white the square?
It's a little USB light.
Okay.
I don't need it really for much of anything now, but it is helpful. Like if I'm doing any type of video shot of me at the desk, it is helpful to have the extra fill light, and it's nice and small and compact. But I had gotten it back when I was constantly on meetings and just wanted to look a little better.
And then to the right of the display between the speaker, something, is that a printer or a scanner?
Scanner. So do you
Gotcha.
remember me talking about the?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
that's
That's
that.
what I thought it was. I wanted to.
Yep. And it's so much nicer to use than what I had. I understand why he was talking about it now.
I like how I like all that. You've got an audio. You've got a couple of audio interfaces, a Unify switch. I'm assuming that's an unmanaged switch.
It's managed. It's just
Oh,
not
it's
plugged in
managed.
at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So I
And
I
then,
well, I think it was last week. I upgraded the switch up in the living room. I put a 16 port PoE switch in the living room instead of this 8 port switch. So the 8 port will be here at the desk. I just need to run a cable in here for it.
I do like how those shelves are. I like when you said rack mount. That's what I was thinking, but I didn't quite see them. But this picture shows them. And then the last picture you sent, the big shelf. Oh, yeah, and that's your cyber powered. That's your UPS. Oh, you've well,
Yeah,
wait,
the
you've
UPS
got
is at the bottom, and then the
okay,
surge protector is up top, rack mounted.
okay, okay.
I do not have a
That's
rack mount
really
UPS at the moment.
right. That's really cool. I like the rack mount for the desk. That's really cool. Super nerdy, but like that's a thing that I would like.
So I've been stalking this desk since we moved into this house,
Mm-hmm.
and it was $6 or $7.99 when we moved in. And I've just been watching and waiting until it finally got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm willing to pay that for it because that
Yeah,
gives me the type of flexibility I need for this space.
yeah, I like it. So you want to talk about a thing?
Sure, I'm always game.
I had some thoughts about just the sort of like the direction, I guess you could say that, uh, or not the direction, how things seem to be shaping up for um, the election in November. Now I think we're like 100 days out. Um, Post Biden stepping down for from uh, seeking reelection. Um, I've just seen a lot of good positives. I've seen a lot of positive commentary and articles written about Harris, and she announced a running mate today, which folks seem to be swooning over. And like I compared him to the same sort of left of center politics that maybe Gavin Newsom I might have looked at to see, but also um, he doesn't have that used car salesman vibe that Newsom sort of that air he has. He's not pretentious, or he's not coming across as pretentious. I think the Guardian wrote about something that he was wearing wherever, I don't know, and he said his outfit caught attention online for not looking like a politician's attempt to look like a regular person. It was just his regular clothes. I
I've
thought that
seen
was
some
funny.
commentary like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
to be
it's
just to be fair, I did not know who this guy was before
I didn't
today.
either. I didn't either. Same. I didn't know he was governor of. I didn't know. I didn't even know that Minnesota had a governor. I did know that they did, but I didn't know who he was.
Yeah, I
Um,
follow.
there was there was a thing I saw that where Walls asked JD Vance's son to tell him more about Pikachu, and then gave him a little hug and tells him he's proud of him, and then it's like he's he's somebody wrote that he's gonna give every American a hug and slip them some gas money in their pocket while saying "Don't tell mom." So it's just like the thing that I see coming from that, like, wow, what a clever pick, is that he he is. I think the DNC very much saw this is the kind of person that might motivate uh, young Gen X and older millennials, and maybe the whole swath of millennials to like make it out to the polls, because that's where the strength is.
I have, I certainly have thoughts. I don't really fully know what they are yet. So kind of kind of like what you were describing. Most of what I've seen, I haven't done my research on him that I typically would do before speaking about someone, but what I've seen has been the same kind of thing, same kind of vibe. Talking about basically he's your likable Midwestern type person, the embodiment of that, and it's authentic, and that's basically what you get. It's not a show, not a bit. It's he's just a typical guy from the Midwest who is trying to make things better for people around him, kind of thing.
He seems to embody the things that we've talked about that we
Right, right,
and while you know he's certainly giving a really good first impression, and I hope that is an accurate impression. Um, he's 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 I think he is more palatable to Americans. Like if you'd ask me who do you like, I liked Pete Buttigieg for a running mate for Harris, but America's just not ready for a gay man in that position. And when I say they're not ready, it's I say that as a negative thing about Americans, not as that we shouldn't have that it even should be an issue at all. It shouldn't be an issue at all. It should be nobody ever thinks about it. But I just don't think America is willing to swallow that. We barely had a black president. Where hopefully we'll have our first Madam President. So it's disappointing that we are that way, but I think Tim Walz is he's a white guy in his 60s, and that's what America wants. And the reason that they want that is because that's what they're used to. It is certainly what we've had almost all of our history.
So you kind of started to touch on some of the areas where I have more pronounced thoughts. There are kind of two major trains of thought that have continued to come to mind, just kind of digesting things. One is the contrast between the Republican ticket, we'll put it that way, and how corrosive and just weird and intentionally added. And I don't even have the words to describe it anymore, because just to take a step back, did you watch any of the snippets from Trump's appearance with the Association of Black Journalists, whatever? I don't know the actual.
Yes.
So those types of appearances and things scream to me of a maniac. I mean, a flat out sociopathic lunatic. There's just no other way that I can personally look at that person and those types of performances and think that anything positive. It just, I don't get it. I can't see it. But if you ignore that part and look at his following, because it's more than just a demographic. It's very much a following that really latch onto the absurd ideas of truly nationalizing Christian values. And again, we've teased it a couple of times. I'm not ready to go down that road. But the over conservative group or majority really seems to latch on to that party because of things like it's what they've known. It's the traditional white guy. It's it's all the flaws with us as a society manifesting itself in an individual. And you look at the Democratic ticket and you have Harris, and then assuming that like Buttigieg was also someone who I thoroughly enjoy watching appearance and speech and everything else, would have loved to see him also. But looking at that ticket, it's so far estranged from the ultra conservative or even just moderately conservative latching onto the Republican Party, that I think it would further divide and drive people toward a less positive outcome because of our failure as individuals or as a group, either way, to acknowledge people who are different from us. And that's the fundamental issue that I have on one hand. So that's my first long-winded kind of train of thought. The other kind of has a similar vein to it of where it manifested itself, watching, performances and everything, but it's more rooted in what we've consistently talked about, which is how can you be or attempt to be a human being? Let's even drop the decent part. Just how can you attempt to be human and latch on to these ideas and this corrosiveness and divisiveness and just flat out bullshit being fed from people who are supposed to be attempting to lead in any way, shape, fashion, or form? And I'm so fed up with that one, above and beyond anything else, that it only magnifies the failure of us as people to look at people who are different from us through a lens or a label or anything else and have any kind of thought or remark because of that difference. It's just, it's a fundamental flaw that no one should be making. And if you want to harp on this whole make, Christian values mainstream and enshrined and embedded into everything that is this country, both of those things can't exist. Like there's no possible way you can attempt to enshrine those things as a part of government and have these other two viewpoints that make you latch on to the fucking lunatic that is Trump. I mean, that's the nicest way I can put it. So that's where, I know that's a lot to try to digest, but that's where my head has been swirling with the VP pick, because this VP pick is definitively driven by our failures as a society. That's it. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. I don't know the guy yet. First impressions are good. Maybe a great pick. But the fact that it's driven by those failures alone kind of sours it for me.
Yes. Yes.
Good response. I love it. No, I didn't even know how to respond to it, so I get it. It's just there's so much of that swimming around in my head that I don't even know what my thoughts are. It's just all I can look at is how we're just fucking morons as a society, period.
For sure. Person is smart, people are stupid. And, it's at a point where it's like, I made a comment, you're making a comment, like we're picking an older white, well, I don't want to say older white guy because, we just got, we're getting rid of one. Well, hopefully not swapping one out, but like those guys are truly old. Whereas, Walls is 60. He's an older Gen X. He's not at retirement age yet. He's got a few years, but
there is a big difference between 80-ish year olds and 60-ish year olds. Just
right. You can still be very sharp at at any point in life, something can happen to you where you lose your edge or whatever. But we don't see it happening because of age. Sometimes it's usually age plus something else, or something else that has been brought on by that age, not necessarily just age itself. Whereas, like we look at Trump, or I don't know, Trump is maybe a different case because he was wacko to begin with. But I think that has a lot to do with like the world that he lived in and nobody telling him no for a lot of his life, majority of his life, if not all of his life. Whereas, we look at Joe Biden, he's in his early 80s. He's just like, things aren't, the machine, the machine is not working. It's not in tip top shape. It has done 80 years worth of 8 decades worth of work.
Yes.
So it's not that he couldn't. It's that it's that's something that we see at that age more often than not. So, and what's surprising to me is we haven't heard anybody say anything about Ronald Reagan in his second term, because he was not there. Like he was a space cadet.
I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure that's been documented biographically as well.
Yes. It's not. This is not like conspiracy theory or speculation. It is a known fact that he was not there because what did he have? Did he have Parkinson's or dementia?
It was not Parkinson's. I know that. I do not remember if it was dementia or if it was something else. But the snippets that I remember were talking about how Nancy Reagan performed more, I don't know if I would say official duties, but was more prominent as a first lady than most previous first ladies.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's been said. But it was Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Real time. But Reagan wasn't diagnosed until 6 years leaving office, or 5 years leaving the office. So that would have been in Clinton's first. Anyway, that being said, it's nice to see somebody capable.
Yes.
It's nice to see that they're like trying to, hey, we've got a woman. She is a person of color, and people are just bullshitting about that. But we this is something that this is the right candidate. This is the candidate that we want to put forth, and it's like here and here's our token. Walz is our token white guy.
Yeah. It is funny from that perspective. So, quick side story, I suppose. We had a group of people back when I was in Columbus that would get together and just hang out all the time. We had one guy that would join us occasionally who all of us, even he, would refer to himself as the token black guy, just because that within that group he was. And so it's always been kind of an affectionate joke, inside joke from that group, that it's kind of funny to see it flipped with regard to the potential I guess they're official candidates now. I don't know. I always think back to that and laugh a little bit when I see a pick who is really chosen for a very specific reason. And it's the token whatever person.
It makes me think of that. There's a clever joke about in the movie Black Panther. You've got Andy. What's his name? The actor that played Gollum.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. I kept wanting to say Sorkin, and I was like, no, that's Aaron Sorkin, wrong person. Andy Serkis and Martin Freeman.
Morgan Freeman?
Martin.
Who
he was Bilbo in The Hobbit.
Oh, yes.
Martin. I think his name is Martin Freeman.
I think so.
He's in Sherlock as Dr. Watson. Great actor. I really enjoy his work. Anyway, they're both in the Black Panther movies, and they're the two white actors that are in the Black Panther movie, and it's great because since they were Gollum and Bilbo, it means that they are the two Tolkien white guys of the movie.
Well played.
Yeah, I wish I was clever enough to have come up with that, but that is that's what it made me think of. Anyway, those were some of the thoughts that I have. I'm somewhat encouraged because I guess the things that I feel encouraged about are, I don't think that this was intended, but it turned out it seems to be working out that this 100-day dash to election day is going to benefit Harris. She's gaining momentum. She's gaining popularity, and the Trump campaign seems to be like wobbling along. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen a car driving down the interstate where its tires wobbly, and it's like, oh, that's not good. That's what it feels like because the the assassination attempt didn't bolster his numbers any, like we thought maybe. I can remember that Saturday, people, talking to people, was like, well, I think he just won the election. And it turns out, no, it didn't really do much for his campaign. And then, he didn't really get the sympathy for it. Now he's, I mean, he's made gaffes since 2015 as far as, being running for a political office. He's made gaffes since day one, but they just don't seem to be, we don't seem to be normal people that are not in the cult of Trump don't seem to be affected by them as much anymore. And I mean that in the sense of when he said grab him by the pussy, we're like, oh, that's the end of his campaign. And then it wasn't, and he got elected. Now we're just like, that's just Trump bullshit, and it's just not, it doesn't have the impact that it used to have. And then things got weird with J.D. Vance, and that doesn't seem to be helping their cause at all.
So I would agree. And as you were talking, I should probably clarify that even though my thoughts and everything are more negative maybe than they should be, it's not because of the way the election seems to be shaping up. It's because of how certain aspects are shaping up. And it's just because it's so difficult for me to fathom anybody being able to support the comedy of errors that the Republican Party has produced. Like, that's, in a nutshell, that would be what I would boil it down to. And it's not, I don't even understand how, I should rephrase that. I understand how it got here, unfortunately. But what I don't understand is why so few Republicans are willing to make a statement against the clown show that has been put forth. I don't understand why that is such minor, or so minor a group of people, because you can count them on one hand. And for me, it seems like more than a half dozen people, maybe at best, would be willing to at least speak their mind. And like, how is it out of a party with this many people, you have so many willing to just go along for the ride? Like, that's the piece that is so baffling overall. So, recognizing that, bias and viewpoint and lens, I want to go back to one of the things that you mentioned, which is, yes, it does feel positive, and it feels great to have really a choice that you may not agree with the policies, but you can't deny the leadership potential and capabilities. And on top of that, is progressive enough to take us in a positive direction without steamrolling well beyond that kind of central leaning one side or another vibe that the majority of people seem to fall into when polled, right? Like, it's for as progressive as a lot of people are, overall the country is still fairly centrist. Maybe leaning a little left on some issues, maybe leaning a little right on some issues, but generally speaking, when you actually attempt to do a representative sample of a group of the population, you tend to get fairly central views, just across the board. And that's not necessarily where we need to be from being a decent people, but I understand that it takes baby steps to get there. And this feels like a ticket that is capable of fulfilling that promise, right? Like that kind of, yeah, we want to make some changes, but it's not like we want to go jump over here to the far left kind of thing, like Sanders was accused of, and at this point, I think every Democrat ever running has been accused of. Um, but it is refreshing from that perspective. I still have a tinge of, we'll call it pessimism, because I think that's what it is.
I think so.
But it's surrounding Trump's candidacy and potential win in general. But I think it's born out of where we physically reside. and not reality. And the reason I say it that way is because I'm so tired of seeing bullshit stuff from people that I know directly on social media that is false correlation or just picking some random thing to post because it's a good soundbite or it's a one-liner or whatever, like just completely unfounded, untruthful, under the guise of uh, being pro, I don't know, American in some fashion for supporting Trump, that I feel like I'm just oppressed by where I am, not so much the reality of where the country is. And I'm hoping that I'm correct in that thought and we'll see it turn out and play out that way come the election. And it feels like it could, but I do have to acknowledge that there's that very intense localized other thing that really colors my view on the entire election itself.
I agree. It's hard to get a feel when you're surrounded by such a strong bias.
And let me add to that too. Let me see if
Yes,
I can
please.
describe this in a way that kind of makes sense for whoever might happen to listen. Imagine sitting with a group of your friends, and all of you are talking about these positive things for um, what you can do for other people, being empathetic, why we should not care that somebody's gay or not gay, and why we should not care about the color of someone's skin, and all these other things that we have talked about ad nauseum over the past however many years at this point. And at the same time, turning around and seeing 3 to 5% of that group posting, honestly, shit in support of the Republican Party, just out of precedent, I guess, or philosophy, and trying to reconcile that difference, because you know a version of them that talks about being a decent human being and not being oppressive and preaching the liberties of individual choice, and then you turn around and see them on some other or in some other arena on a social platform espousing the crap that you see from the current Republican nominees. And it's just, there's a dissonance there that's very difficult to understand. And it's the same dissonance that's very difficult to understand why he has such a massive following, especially among people who you know full well none of his policies help and probably actually hurt. And it's just mind boggling to deal with that. And that is something that I have never experienced with any other candidate. Hopefully that made sense, because I'm
Yeah,
not
it
sure I
did.
can describe it any
No,
better.
no, no. It does. It does make sense. I think that it is. It's hard. It's hard to beat down here. Well, so it's hard to beat down here because, like I've said this many times, to be American conservative. I want to say American conservative because I honestly think that I honestly think we don't really have a liberal party in this country. I think the Democratic Party is a relatively conservative party or centrist party at best, and the Republican Party, I would, they used to be the conservative party, but they are not. They are. It's they're
It has changed for sure.
yes.
And we've talked about it. I do not remember what episode we talked about it, but I remember specifically talking about how the parties flip flopped and changed in the
Oh
60s, I think
yes.
it was, and
Yep.
then changed
And
again. Are generally speaking around Reagan. Like, it wasn't as pronounced and it didn't necessarily feel like they had really changed quite yet, but that was kind of the turning point attributed to the current incarnation of the Republican Party.
so I think that I mean, even we can go back 30 years, 40 years ago for the Republican Party would have been considered the um, conservative party, and it's the conservative. Well, I don't. It's harder for me to talk so specifically. So maybe the last 20 years, we can see that. No, I can say even in the 90s as well, because I do remember that, and I do remember I have been able to look back and as an adult and see what was going on, and it was about power. It wasn't about conservatism. I mean, for some people, it was about conservatism, but they were just voters. But for the people who were actually making decisions, it wasn't about values that they espoused. It was about not losing control. It was about taking down the opponent. It was not about a better America. If if abortion was such a big deal to conservative, the conservative party, then there would be a whole lot of let's help people get their income up. Let's provide childcare. Let's pull people out of poverty. Let's make sure people's bellies are full. That's what reduces the instances of abortions in this country, medical abortions. Actually, hell, it probably even helps with spontaneous abortions because people are getting their nutritional needs met. So,
Fun fact: it would also help with crime.
I was just gonna. That was exactly where it's gonna go. You want to be tough on crime? Same goddamn solution. We want to put people in prison. Why do you want to put people in prison? Well, the people who want to put people in prison are making a shit ton of money off of people being in prison, and those people are also like we get to discriminate against people because we can no longer own them. We can no longer at this point it's not even about owning slaves and getting the free labor. It's about exhibiting complete and total dominance over people of color. And if you really want crime to decrease, you would again provide living wages, provide health care, provide child care, make it easy to vote. And that's not what the Conservative Party is about. It's not what the Republican Party has ever been about. At some point there were, some monetary values that they had, but that's long.
I want to add on to one piece. So, statistically speaking, people of color are targeted more than others with regard to incarceration and anything within the criminal justice system. So I get why it's stated that way. But I want to clarify that statistically, over the past 4 or 5 decades, it has been repeatedly proven that incarceration and our idea of reform doesn't make sense regardless of whether it is people of color or not people of color. The things that make a difference are programs that deal with rehabilitation, and those do not require incarceration. Now, there are other reasons to incarcerate some people based on their threat to society at large. So I would certainly not be saying that incarceration should not exist in any form, but it is grossly overused in America today. And it is unfortunately overused as an oppressive measure for people of color, more so than it is anything else. That's also factual. The main thing that I wanted to make sure I added was just that within the criminal justice system, whether it is people of color or not, incarceration and this whole idea of deterrence based on punishment is bullshit and has been debunked for decades, repeatedly in many studies. We can point to the data. It has been yelled as loud as possible by interest groups, and yet we still have, unfortunately, people clamoring for tougher sentencing and less discretion on the basis of judges in how sentencing occurs and mandatory prosecutions and everything that feeds into this system that is demonstrably a failure in its current form.
I really appreciate you adding that on because That's exactly right. It is
I'm a bit biased with that one, just based
for
on
sure.
educational background.
Yeah.
It's it is unfortunate. Like I don't want to take away from the fact that law enforcement and the criminal justice system as a whole has been systematically used to oppress others. I don't want to take away from that because it is also factual. I just want to also make sure I point out that anybody who argues that tougher sentencing or mandatory minimums or any of this tough on crime bullshit that you hear from anybody in the political space has been scientifically debunked for decades, and we're still having it pushed down our throats.
Right, because it's being pushed down our throats by the people who want to oppress minorities.
It's a
And
step beyond that.
yeah,
It's being pushed down our throats because there's a massive number of people who have decided science doesn't understand or know anything, but the crazy relative next door does, or whatever Joe John Doe politician who has told me this, they know what they're talking about, or unfortunately for most of them, a particular news source that rhymes with socks can't be trusted and spouts this kind of shit all the time.
yeah, but you know what? It's really easy to like want to just stick to your core beliefs because nobody wants to. It's a lot harder to let those go.
I've grown far less what's the word uh, accepting of people who just don't trust science. Like it's reached a point where if your source is not scientific, go away. Just plain and simple and done. We have no basis for a conversation. Just go.
Yeah, because any it's the classic playing chess with a pigeon proverb.
I don't. I know what you're talking about. I could not repeat it. Um, but I've seen so many different things on that. What it really came down to for me at this point, one, it's not being a decent person if you want to just argue something based on how you feel or your principle and not want to understand any other viewpoint. Like there's no growth in that type of person. But two, why am I going to waste my time and energy talking to you about something when you're dead set on whatever it is, regardless of how many contradictions or uh, true facts I can point to that contradict you, and you still hold on to it just because that's what you believe. Like it's just not worth my time anymore. Uh, Maybe that's just a byproduct of hitting half a 90. Um, but it just I don't know. I've as pessimistic as I can be, and as much as I want people to understand and change, no amount of anything that I say or do is going to change someone who isn't willing to at least listen, much less understand what is being said. And so those people can just go fuck off. It's not worth my time to have the conversation.
Yeah, I think the last sort of thought I had about that and is that uh, it's I don't want to say that you know defeat can be snatched out of the jaws of victory because I don't think we're in the jaws of victory yet. But something along that sentiment is that it's still ours to lose, and if you don't go vote, that's how so much is lost is because people just don't go vote. And it's like, oh, I can't vote for like when Biden was still planning to run. Oh, I can't vote for the old guy. Well, like vote against the other old guy. I was like, no, I don't feel good about that. I don't. So shut the fuck up. It's people people have some sort of like moral opposition to voting against the lesser of two evils. I was like, because then they're like, oh, well, I'm still voting for evil. And I was like, well, fuck, how do you think you get out of the problem? You have you have to vote. Voting for the lesser of two evil is not a game plan for the rest of forever. It's that's what you have to do to fix things. And, I've said many times, vote against the guy you don't like, vote against the lesser of two evils. And that's sort of an incomplete thought. The whole thing is vote for the lesser of two evils, or vote against the guy you don't like, until we can fix the and fix the problems, so that you can vote for somebody that you do actually like. Yeah, it's still ours to lose.
I certainly agree. So there are two things that I kind of want to add on or tangentially relate. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to be yet. We'll see. Kind of ad-libbing here. Um, but two things. One, I do find it interesting that you basically have finally an older Gen X ticket that you can look at.
Right.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. That's a thought that I've had in my head. I don't want to dissect it at this point. It's just that is a really interesting thing.
I definitely had that thought.
But two, it's not even voting for the lesser of two evils. And this is where I agree with the sentiment. I agree with the idea. Here's the problem that I have with it, though. More often than not, you will see one party go that route where you have massive turnout because they're voting against the other party, specifically because they view it as the better choice, or the lesser of two evils, exactly as stated. It does not always work for the other party. And it's an odd dichotomy where I think the reason is that there's a desire with the typical voting bloc that would really rally around certain candidates for whatever reason, that it resonates with them to vote for somebody. And that's what turns out the vote. And that's why you saw Obama and Biden win respectively, is because they were able to get people to say, you know what, I'm voting for you, and mobilize. Whereas the other group has often resorted to a similar kind of idea of voting for the lesser of two evils without saying it that way. It's always been vote against or vote for me so that we don't lose something or don't do something or whatever. It's been that kind of caveat style messaging that people equate to the voting of lesser two evils. For example, I certainly bought into it when thinking about the Bush-Gore debate, because to me, Gore was more evil than Bush because of extremist environmental policies. Evil was obviously not the word I would use. I really did not like his environmental policies. I thought they were overly excessive. In retrospect, it probably was not the best choice. But I still stand by it, that at the time, my viewpoints aligned more with, I need to make sure those extreme views aren't what take us forward, and so I need to get out and vote. Granted, I have also voted in every election that I have been eligible to vote in, and will continue to do so because I view it as a responsibility. So I'm maybe not the best judge of what that dynamic looks like, but I remember very specifically feeling that type of idea then, as opposed to recent years where it's not been trying to vote for the lesser of two evils. It's trying to vote for someone who will actually maintain the democracy that I would like to try to live in, and exhibits personality traits that are at least semi-congruent with leadership and humanity, and isn't just generally a babbling psychopath. But you know what I mean? To me,
yeah, I do.
I really don't know that I agree with that messaging anymore because of that framing. But I do agree with the idea that if you are the type of person that you don't like either choice at all, neither one of them appeals to you, at least go vote for the one that is less despicable than the other.
Vote for the one that will allow you to get to a place to vote for somebody that you do.
Vote for the one that hasn't already told you exactly how they plan to eliminate freedom.
Oh man, that was a thing that I had recently heard someone say. It's like, don't worry about the things that he didn't do. Look at the things that regarding Trump. Look at the things that he did do between 2016 and 2020.
And the things that he has explicitly stated he plans to do.
Yep.
Like, I don't care.
He's gonna do them.
I don't care who you are. You cannot tell me that someone standing there and telling you they plan to do these things do not create an agenda of what they plan to do.
No. No, he said exactly what exactly. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.